everybody. Welcome to another edition of Johnny Vlogs. Today's episode brought to you by new Patreon supporters, Stephanie Lowe. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Pat Duigon. Thank you very, very much, Pat. I really appreciate it. Cindy McKenzie. Hi, Cindy. Thank you for the support. And Mark Mecklemore. Hope I'm getting that right, Mark, but thank you guys so much for joining the Patreon bandwagon and supporting everything I do here on the Lord and Arts channel. I truly appreciate it. So today's topic, a little bit of a intense one. When I was looking for doing that Q&A I did a couple weeks ago and looking into all the questions that you had submitted, there was a few people that sent questions that were a little bit too big for the Q&A, but I decided to hold on to those and dedicate full episodes to those. So this is one of those episodes. So before I get started, I have to thank James Hughes. Thank you so much, James, for submitting this question. I think it's a really good question, really worth some thought. I'm going to share my thoughts here, ask you guys to do the same in the comments below. Maybe we'll come to some understanding on this. But here's his question. Jay, do you feel that evil is a choice that is learned? Is it a wanted by behavior by an empty, unseen, malevolent void, or are you born with it? Is it a given that any person can fall prey to evil, or are our fellow humans cursed to stray, to do horrible things? I know I never could act in the same way some of these insane people act in our world today. Is it pure evil? Is it a response to a different situation in your life? In my little insignificant opinion, some people are just born evil. Sad face. Good luck, man. Love what you do. James, I don't think your opinion's insignificant at all, obviously, because we're doing a whole episode about your awesome question here. But I do think that you're tapping around something significant here. Let's break this question down into parts. Are people evil? I believe that evil is an act. It is a type of action that people can take. Certain things that people might do could be perceived as evil. And then you could even take that both ways. Is it evil if I know I'm harming someone intentionally versus I'm doing something that I'm not aware of and someone else sees that and they say, wow, that guy's being evil. Look what he's doing. He doesn't even notice that he's harming those people. So, you know that saying, beauty lies in the eye of the beholder? I think there's a certain aspect of that is true for certain levels of evil also. But to get back to kind of the core question that you're asking, is there a genetic trait? Is there a genome sequence in us somewhere that if we have that slider kicked on, we are going to be evil? I don't know. I do have this feeling that it is more of a learned trait. I think that sometimes evil comes out of, I want to say necessity. I know that's a real weird statement, but if you think of people that are known, serial killers and serial offenders and things of that nature. If you look into their past, you will usually find that they sometimes had a rough upbringing. They were highly misunderstood. Maybe they started early on by harming animals or doing things that were kind of lesser evils. And that to me shows that there's a trend of something being learned in there. I don't think Jeffrey Dahmer started by chopping people up and storing them in his fridge. I think that when he was much younger, he probably had this boundary, had this line that he knew inside of him that he was playing with and decided to push that boundary further and push it further until he came to that point of doing those truly horrific things. And if you look particularly into serial killers a bit, you will see that they definitely learn. Their methods will change. They will usually get better at what they're doing. So it does occur to me that this is a learned response. Now, the question still boils back to, is it something that was a switch that was inside these people to start with, or is there something environmental that maybe happened to them that kicked this on? That is a pretty tough question, and I think we all have to look into ourselves to try to figure out, that type of answer. For me personally, There was things I did when I was a kid that I'm ashamed of, that I would never repeat in my life again, where I was playing with that boundary that, just like, well, not maybe just like some of those evils I was talking about earlier, but in a similar way. Something's wrong, and sometimes you will push the edge of that being wrong just to see what it's like. And maybe you'll even step over the edge in a particular instance. Does that mean that you are an evil person in particular? I don't think so. I think that just means that you're just a person, but you happened to do an evil act, knowingly or unknowingly. And that's where I think when we look inside of ourselves, we do get to determine what is right and what is wrong. And for most people, I believe that, as long as I'm not harming someone else, I think that it's pretty fair to say that what I'm doing is not evil. And some people might extend that even to harming people's property or animals and all kinds of different things like that, nature. And that's maybe where it gets a bit more into your particular definition or your particular view of evil. Do I think that there are evil people in this world? I do think it can happen, but I still think it's part of that mechanism of people playing with that internal or many internal boundaries. Getting used to ignoring some of those boundaries. And maybe when you do so much of one type of activity, it begins to consume you a little bit. For example, like with a serial killer, to where maybe it's all they can think about. Maybe they're going to do it time and time again, and it becomes almost an automatic pattern with them. At that point, did the evil act actually take them over and make them an evil person? I think there's something to that. Now, does that mean that they're totally lost, that they can never learn to not be that way again? I don't think so. I think that humans are pretty amazing beings. We have the ability to be introspective. And I believe everyone has that ability. I know some people would say, well, wait, you have psychological disorders, and some people might not be able to be as introspective as others. I understand that there's a certain number of people that will struggle with that. But as a general population, we have the ability to look at what we're doing and to learn from it. And that includes when we're being in maybe a series of doing bad things. We still have the ability to look at those patterns, look at the outcome of those events, and learn from that experience. So that's why I hit a little bit of a sticky point when I want to just label that, hey, this person is evil, they're just evil, write them off, everything that they're going to do is going to be evil. I struggle with that a bit. I do think that we can learn our way back off of those boundaries and learn to establish some new boundaries where we're not harming others or committing those truly evil acts. But I guess to kind of put it squarely to your question, I think I personally believe that evil is learned. I think that it might happen as a result of conditioning that the person is going through or an environment that they've been brought up in. But we still have the ability, I firmly believe, to look at those inner switches, those inner barriers that we have, those lines that we decide to cross. I think there's a moment that happens for each of us before we're about to do something bad where we can say, wait, I'm getting this weird feeling. Should I really push this boundary? And some people get used to ignoring that feeling and just pushing the boundary. And that's what puts them into an evil act. And then if they do enough evil acts, maybe it does consume them. I really like your point about that you could never act in the same way that some of these insane people act. And I like that point because you're very strong about your conviction there. And for me personally, I question it. I don't know what I would act like if someone very close to me was hurt or killed or something along those lines. It could push you into emotional turmoil, and you might find out some new stuff about yourself that you didn't realize. And when you're in that kind of pain or dealing with that kind of anger, that ability to check in on yourself and watch out for those boundaries that you're going to push might be compromised, and you might find yourself over the line. I think a man that finds the killer of his children and winds up harming that person, Is that guy truly evil or not? That is a really tough question for me to answer, because you might look at the conditions of what he did and say, well, that's kind of understandable. It's not legal. Maybe it's outside the bounds of what we consider normal for our society, but you know, his child was killed. He went and found the guy. He did something bad to that guy. Is that really evil or not? I don't know. That's where I'm at. Are your guys' head in a spin like mine is? Please tell me your thoughts in the comments below. Looking forward to checking out what you all think about this one. There's just so many different angles to take this topic from. And I'm particularly curious if anyone out there thinks that there is some type of switch within people where it's just like, hey, I knew this person, everything they did was evil, you know, they liked it, they were just an evil person, they had an evil mindset. I mean, I think it's possible. It's a big world out there. There's a lot of people, and I haven't met all of them. So thank you so much for hanging out with me on this edition of Johnny Vlogs. I appreciate each and every one of you viewers out there. Thank you for supporting my work. I'll see you on the next show on the Lord and Arch channel.